who is going to share our keynote. And the parts of the story that I've got to share with her are also super, super important parts of my life.
I apologize. I tried to be really professional and printed out my notes, but someone seems to have stolen them. So, they're on my phone. I apologize. I'm also going to take these off. I'll be less nervous if I can't see your faces. If you don't know me, I'm Maggie Hohlen. You do know me, I'm Maggie Hohlen. My earliest memory of young life, I was about 6, 7 years old, and my mom brought my sisters and I to watch my dad and my uncle perform a leader skit. It was not yet Young Life at this point. They were still operating out of a local church. But the skit that night, let me back up. A leader skit is something we do at the end of Young Life on Monday nights with the primary purpose of leaders getting up in front of kids and making them laugh and humanizing ourselves and being silly and creating a space where kids just feel like they're allowed to laugh and have a good time. This particular leader skit is called Ball Ballet. And while I have a clip of a different ball ballet, it looked very similar to this, but this was not from when I was 6 years old. But here's a All right, so that was my first ever Young Life experience as a small child. And from that day on, I got to grow up watching my dad embarrass himself, put on tutus, put on diapers, eat weird things, have very realistic fake CPR performed on him, all in the name of creating welcoming spaces for kids. And then, when I entered high school, I started attending Young Life for real, not just as a little kid hiding in the back. And I got to watch him do this for my peers. And while there was some secondhand embarrassment, it only seemed to make my friends like him more, so I was okay with it. And I got to watch this care for kids extend into the classroom. I went to the same school he taught at, and I got to sit in his classroom as a freshman. What a way to start high school. And see the words unconditional acceptance hanging on the front wall of his classroom. And I got to see the way he lived out those words with every kid at school, the loud kids, the quiet kids, the weird kids, and every kid in between. In fact, I used to get frustrated with him sometimes because I would come home wanting to complain about one of my classmates, and he would just tell me how much he enjoyed having them in class. And I remember thinking, does he really like every kid in his entire high school? Because there's no way. And as a teacher now, I do know that there is no way. But he managed to convince me, his own 15-year-old child, that he liked every kid in that high school. Now as an adult, I get to eat weird things and put on weird costumes. We saved the CPR for Barry. But I get to do these things alongside him to serve the kids in our school district. And some of you might be wondering, why? Why do you let people perform CPR on you? Why do you put on tutus and diapers and eat mayo out of people's armpits? Well, the reason why is because you've maybe seen up on screen and heard the theme of day after day this evening. In Matthew 28, verses 18 through 20, Jesus gives us the Great Commission, which reads in the Message translation, Jesus went right ahead and gave his charge. God authorized and commanded me to commission you. Go out and train everyone you meet, far and near, in this way of life, marking them by baptism in the threefold name, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Then instruct them in the practice of all I have commanded you. I will be with you as you do this, day after day after day, right up to the end of the age. And so it is a blessing in my life to get to do my day after day after day with the kids in the Elk River Area School District. And part of why this Great Commission looks the way that it does for me, we might all have a different idea when we think of this verse. It may guide the way that we interact with our coworkers, our family, our neighbors, and for those of us who do Young Life, it guides the way that we interact with kids. Our kids need people who are consistent, because the only other thing that's consistent in their life is that they are constantly being inundated with messages and newsreels and things on their phones and from people in their lives, and they have to take everything that they hear all day long and sort it through this information processing system in their brain to determine what is true and what is a lie, because they are flooded with lies on their phones and in the messaging that they receive all the time. Add to that reality AI, and not only are they processing if the information is correct, but is the video itself real? And so our kids are navigating a landscape that none of us has. I'm only 28. I did not navigate that landscape when I was a teenager. And so we play the long game, because when an adult wanders into a 16-year-old's life and says, Jesus loves you, that information gets sent through the same processing system to be sorted into truth or lie. And so how do we make sure that on its way down, it gets sorted into the truth bucket? And so we show up day after day after day, because Jesus said he'll be with us when we do. And so I'm going to do my best to share some stories with you that encompass how we do this and what it looks like. I'm going to share about some of our leaders. We have 2 Paytons. You've heard about one of them. The other one is here tonight. He's been running, there he is. He's been running around kind of wrangling our kids this evening who've been serving you. We call him PG. We call the other one PK. And so PG works at Von Hansen's. I don't know who started working there first, but him and another Young Life kid were working there for a while together, getting to know each other, building a relationship outside of just Young Life. And soon enough, 2 others joined them. And the 4 of them still work at Von Hansen's, and Peyton spends his day after day after day engaging with these kids. And their relationship is not just coworkers, it's not just a Young Life leader and his kids, it's a friendship. And these kids trust him, and these kids know him, and he knows them on a deeper level. Another example, Emma over there is one of our leaders. Her and I last year went to almost every girls hockey game that we could to watch some of our kids play. And we would stick around till 9:30 or 10 every night, even though we had jobs in the morning, to make sure that we could see them after the game and say hi and tell them the game. And this to them, some of the girls, meant that not only did we care about their life at Young Life, but their life outside of Young Life. We cared about the other things that they cared about, and not just when they came to us. Another one of our leaders, who you heard from her mom, Laura, Peyton Klein, EK, is the queen of the social realm, and she can be found fielding texts about school drama and boyfriends and XYZ and all of these things. And she recently had an experience with a student who had texted her and said, my boyfriend and I have a long time have broken up. I needed to talk to somebody who knows the Lord, who is going to guide me in the right direction. You feel like a big sister to me, and I just want to know what to do. And so Peyton was able to sit there and talk with her, and they've continued to talk about what choosing life looks like, and what choosing the pathway that you want to be on looks like. And I think if we really look back at Peyton's life, we see the place where Peyton used to sit, and the place where she sits now, and how she sat in this dark corner, and now she's sitting in this light, while kids who are in the darkness are reaching out to her, and she's reaching back, and she's pulling kids from the spots she recognizes into the spot that she knows is better. And Peyton's life in and of itself is evidence of the transforming love of Jesus and what it can do. And that ripple that Laura talked about. I got to be on that camp trip with Peyton. And yes, she did crowd surf the bus. And yes, it was awesome. Like Peyton, being a leader follows us home Some of you may relate to your work following you home. Only my work follows me home in the form of teenagers texting me saying, hey, what you doing right now? Can we call you? We don't understand the Holy Trinity. And then spending the next 30 minutes discussing 3-in-1 shampoo and how all 3 soaps are in there, but it's still just the one soap, to try to make sense of this complex theological thing. And this is what we do. And these things seem small, and these things seem mundane, but it's in the collection of the mundane things that kids start to sort that truth, and to sort that, does Jesus really love me? This leader told me that, and this leader keeps showing up, and this leader keeps loving me, and this leader keeps acting in this way that's making me question if this is the truth or not. And these small moments often lead us to bigger moments, and they bring us to moments where kids have grown to trust us and grown to believe that we care about them, and then they allow us into the deepest pains as well as the greatest joys in their life. I have 2 more stories for you, and then I'm gonna get out of here. This summer at camp, one of our leaders, Jeremy, had been kind of just building a relationship with this kid, and he kind of came to camp. These are Jeremy's words. He kind of came to camp mostly because he didn't want to miss out on the fun he knew his friends would be having. And somewhere along the line at camp, he had said to Jeremy, I'm really interested in this God stuff. I'm wondering about it, but I just wish I could see some kind of sign. I just need to see some kind of sign. Which, if you think about it, a 17-year-old boy telling his adult leader, I need to see a sign, in and of itself is evidence of trust. And evidence that this leader isn't going to judge me or think I'm a weirdo for asking for a sign from God. And later in that week, we do something called 15 minutes of silence. And we hear a message, and then we're sent out to camp. And the kids lay out across the lawn, and we spend 15 minutes at camp with 400 kids being quiet, which is a miracle. And this kid, after these 15 minutes, approached Jeremy and quietly said, I saw my son. Which is amazing, and a reminder that we are not the ones revealing Jesus to kids. It's Jesus doing it, and he allows us to facilitate. He allows us to be there day after day after day, and to come with us where he sends us. The last story I want to tell you is very special to me. This summer we brought a senior girl to camp. We really only spent this school year getting to know her. She didn't come to club before that. And she also, like the first kid, pretty much came because she knew her friends were going to be having a good time, and she didn't want to miss out. And the first few days, she was just having a good time. She was pretty resistant to allowing conversations to get deep. She didn't really want anybody to push the wrong buttons, and we were cool with it. We let it happen. We stayed persistent, and we just kind of let her experience what she was experiencing. And then on day 4, we were having cabin time, which every day we hear a message, and then following that message, we have cabin time, and our cabin was 10 girls, and me and Ella back there. And this girl said, God doesn't know me, seemingly out of nowhere. Said to our cabin, God doesn't know me. And I said, but he does. And she said, no, God doesn't know me. And instead of arguing with her, because what was that going to achieve, I said, well, would it be good or bad if he did? And she said, probably pretty bad. And I said, why is that? She said, because I'm pretty bad. And through a few more exchanges, it became obvious to me that she didn't feel worthy of being known, of being loved, and certainly not of both. And there is one message that our kids hear, and they don't take any time to sort it because they hear it so often that they're not good enough. There's a pathway for that one, straight to the truth box, and they believe it, and they hear it all the time. And the enemy that we are fighting is persistent in telling them day after day after day that they're not good enough. And so we have to come along day after day after day and fight that and counteract that. And this story with the student ended on a better note. We got to tell her about the woman at the well. And this is a story that I love to share at Young Life because as a high schooler that didn't feel good enough, and sometimes as an adult that doesn't feel good enough, the story of the woman at the well tells me that there is no such thing as good enough. If you're unfamiliar with the story of the woman at the well is known as a sinful woman. She's got a pretty bad history. The town has scorned her, outcast her, shamed her. And Jesus comes to her specifically, on purpose, approaches her, pursues her, seeks her out. And he tells her everything she's ever done. She's like, yeah, I didn't tell you any of that. What's going on? And something about this interaction with Jesus, telling her, hey, I know everything you've ever done, but I love you still, causes her to not cower and hide and fear condemnation, but to run to the towns of people that have condemned her to share the love that she's just experienced. So she's running to the people that pushed her out, but she's like, this is way too great a love not to share with all of you. And so sharing this story with my cabin of 10 girls, looking directly into this one kid's eyes the whole time and telling her not good enough is exactly who Jesus finds and looks for and goes to and wants and loves. And he knows you deeply and loves you fully, no matter what. And looking up from her to see this cabin of 10 tear-soaked girls, it was just so painfully obvious to me how much they battle not feeling good enough and how much they need to know that they are loved by Jesus. And so this is our commission, to know kids fully and to accept them still, to carry the character of Christ into dark places in their hearts, into the places that they believe are not good enough, into the places they've been told are not good enough, because not good enough is exactly who Jesus seeks out. Not only to heal them, but to let them know that as they are now, they're his beloved. And that this is our commission. This is our day after day after day. For me, it's been about 8,035 days that Young Life has been a part of my life. For the average high schooler, if they come to us as a freshman, we're with them for about 1,500 days. And hopefully all the days and years and minutes that come after that. And so this commission has many faces and roles. For some of us, it's tutus and weird food and sitting with kids on the cabin floor while we cry. For some of us, it's delivering burgers and hot dogs that we're going to cook up for kids later. For some of us, it's praying behind the scenes in spaces kids will never know about. And for some of us, it is the blessing of generosity and abundance in our lives that we're able to share. So I just thank you all for being here. I thank you for sacrificing an evening to hear about what we do and who our kids are and some of our needs. And I just really appreciate all of you being willing to be here to hear about this.